Walmart stalker. When I was 18, I got a job at Walmart. Small town, not much else there for someone fresh out of high school. I'd been there about a month and worked in the jewelry department, usually from mid-afternoon until the department closed at 9. I would close the department myself, but at the time, Walmart was open 24 hours, so other people were always around. One night, I'm locking the cases up and putting things away, and an overnight stalker walks by and says hi. I look up, smile, and say hi back, then go about my business. This guy, the only way I can describe him is to say he looks like one of the Bee Gees. Shoulder length, frizzy hair, kind of a bouncy hop to a step when he walked, mid-50s. This started to become a regular thing. On nights I closed by myself, he'd walk by and say hi, and I would say hi back. That's it. No conversations ever took place. Then on my birthday, a few of my friends who worked there got me a cake, and I hugged them and said thank you. About an hour later, Mr. Bee comes around with a birthday card and gave it to my manager to give to me. The manager thought it was extremely funny that this guy got me a card, until I opened it. Happy birthday. I saw you hugging those guys earlier. It made me really mad, but I called a friend and talked it out. And he made me realize you're allowed to have friends other than me. Just please don't hug them anymore. Save those hugs for me. I don't know what kind of emotion showed on my face, but my manager grabbed the card and read it, then walked me back to the store manager's office and showed it to him. Store manager said the guy was obviously joking, but that he would talk to him about it. I didn't see Mr. Bee for around a week, until one night while I was closing, he plucked down a stuffed envelope on my counter as he walked by without a word. Inside were 6 pages, front and back, of pure crazy. It was basically his entire life story, all about his family and schools he went to, but with weird stuff like how his sister was a psychic and his father was an exorcist and all sorts of weirdness. The end of the letter was about how his friend, who was 18 years old, was missing, and he said he knew that she was being assaulted because he could hear her screaming his name in his dreams. So that also went to the store manager, and he had me write a written complaint, and he told me not to go outside by myself and not to wander near where the guy might be while I'm on my breaks. No, get rid of him. 2 nights later, I was finishing up for the night, and the way the counter is set up, there is one opening and the counters go all the way around both sides. He brought a hand cart around with boxes for my department, but pushed it into the only opening in the counters, so I was trapped inside. He just stood there and stared at me while I looked at him with what I was sure was pure terror. I was then, and still am now, riddled with anxiety. I don't like confrontation, and the last thing I wanted was for this weirdo to confront me about me reporting him. He whispers, "Sorry, didn't mean to scare you." I turned around and started finishing my closing tasks, pretending he wasn't there, even though I could feel him watching me. After a few minutes, I just looked at him and said, "Weren't you told to stay away from me?" He gave me this gross predator grin and said, "The manager asked me if I was joking." I told him I was. Then he leaned in as close to me as he could get with the counter between us and whispered, "But I'm not joking." Then he walked away. For 2 weeks after that, he would randomly show up wherever I was. I would leave for lunch, he would be there, even non-workplaces. I would go to the mall, he would be there. Another department manager told me he had been reported by 4 other people over the last 2 years for very similar behavior. I again went to my store manager, who told me the guy was harmless and maybe had a little bit of a crush. He was in his 50s, and I had just recently turned 18 during this shit. A week later, I gave my notice and quit, and he still works there. 13 years later. My girlfriend was almost trafficked. This situation happened about a year ago. It's important to note that I'm also a girl, so this was a scary and potentially dangerous situation for both of us. One night after work, just after it had become dark, my girlfriend stopped at the Walmart neighborhood market down the street, which, by the way, is next to a big highway interstate. I made a last-minute run to the bank. Right as I'm pulling out of the bank, I get a text from her saying she thinks she's being followed. I asked her for more details and told her not to leave the store. I was going to drive up to their front door and either watch her get to her car or have her get in mine if she needed. She told me there were two men that she kept seeing in every aisle, usually behind her. They were very clearly staring at her each time and watching her very closely. She thought she was being paranoid, but I told her to trust her gut and that she should let a worker know about the situation and even call the police because it wasn't worth the risk. Before I had made it all the way there, she texted me she was in the checkout. She said the guys followed her there and went to a self-checkout near her, but with no items. They quickly grabbed some gum from the shelf and put it into a bag, but they just stood there, taking forever to cash that item out, and kept watching her and waiting for her to finish. I told her to check out as slowly as humanly possible. I finally arrived. She had just texted me that they finally took their bag and exited the store. However, right as I pulled up, I saw two guys. They perfectly matched her description of them. Hiding in a little cutout near the entrance, they were just standing there and kept peeking around the corner at the front door every single time someone exited. I knew they were looking for her. I pulled my car forward right in front of them, rolled my window down, and just stared into them. I didn't look away. I wanted to make sure that even though they didn't know I had anything to do with her, that I got a very good look at their faces and was watching them. I texted her and told her not to return to her car. I told her to get straight into mine. Right then, they started walking off. However, they had to have been following her since she arrived because the next thing they did was walk straight to her car. Her car is very unique and stands out. They dropped the bag with gum on the ground on the way to her car. One of them went between her car and the one next to it and squatted down by the trunk and just stayed there. The next one walked over to a white work van. He spoke to someone that was in the driver's seat. While this was happening, one of the cars next to hers left. They then pulled the van up into that spot. I called her to make sure she would go straight to my car and don't even look at her own, as they were there waiting for her with a van. She comes out with groceries and they see her and squat down. We quickly load them up and she gets in my car. The men stood up and walked to the van. I pulled away and tried to go around the van to catch a license plate number, but of course there isn't one. I drove in a totally different direction from home and we drove around for a while. I wanted to make sure no one was following us and to give them time to leave her car alone. I wanted to call the cops, but she was convinced we were just seeing things that weren't there, like taking coincidences and making them into something. Looking back, after having talked in depth about both of our experiences and things we witnessed, we definitely should have called the cops, and I regret this. I've since seen the van with the same two guys driving, back in the neighborhoods behind the Walmart. I was turning onto the street they were turning off of. Still no license plate, but their van had more things on the exterior to make it look like a work van. Things like a ladder on the roof. I got so creeped out that I quickly tried to get away just in case they turned around and tried to come for me, so I floored it home. Again, I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? Yeah, there's two men driving away from a neighborhood with a work van. Can you go and get them? They don't even take most things seriously, even when it results in something actually happening. I just truly hope there is a valid explanation for all these actions and that I was just being dramatic, but I don't know. Luckily, I haven't heard of any kidnappings coming out of that Walmart, but who knows? I haven't exactly been digging for it. I was in college, I was out and about with my then boyfriend. We had gone to dinner, then went to Walmart to get some typical college food so we could survive a Sunday in. I was dressed up in a casual dressy fit. We decided to split up while we shopped, maybe to do quicker shopping, but I don't remember the exact reason why. I was wandering the grocery aisles when I noticed this girl who was about my age. In a friendly manner, we casually smiled at each other and continued on shopping. It didn't seem weird at first, but I kept noticing her in the same aisles as me, and a big muscular man was never far behind us. Eventually, I texted my boyfriend and asked where he was and continued on shopping. Next thing I know, this girl approaches me and says how she loves my jacket. I say thanks, Maurice's, and try to move on. She stops me and says something along the lines of, "Hey, you look like you're my age and seem really nice. I just moved here for a new job and company my friends and I are starting," and tried to ask me questions about where I was from. I was vague and untrusting with what I said, noticing this isn't normal. Then she said, "I'm looking for more people like you and I to work for our company. It's kind of a warehouse job, and I would love for you to be one of our bookkeepers. You should give me your number." I said, "That's so nice of you to offer me a job, but I'm not a desk person, and I already have a job I love." She said, "That's a bummer. I thought we might work well together." "Well, would you want to give me your number so we could hang out? I would love to have a friend who could show me around the city." I realized that I wasn't getting out of this situation until my boyfriend showed up, or I gave her my number. Eventually, I rattled off a fake phone number and said, "Hey, I'll catch you later, I gotta go." Then I walked away, praying my boyfriend would be near so we could get the fuck out of here. While I was looking for him and trying to call him, the girl caught up to me and said, "I tried to call you, but it said the number was out of service." And as I tried to come up with a quick excuse and say, "Maybe you typed it in wrong," she saw that my phone was unlocked and in my hand. She quickly snatched it and called herself on it. I was so flustered and mad at her that I snatched my phone back right when my boyfriend came around the corner. He instantly recognized that something was up and said we needed to go. When the girl saw him approach me, she looked so disappointed to see him and stopped trying to interact. We ended up buying nothing and leaving. That night, we called our parents and the police. The police said they didn't think it was anything ill-intended, but I was sure it was probably trafficking. I was going to switch my phone number because I was so scared. I blocked them and turned off all location access on my phone. I was too scared to go anywhere alone for a while. A couple of days later, I got a text from a random number. It was the girl, of course. She sent a picture of my best friend who was out drinking downtown with some of her other friends. The text said, "I met your best friend. She gave me your number because I told her I was looking for new friends. She showed me a picture of you and I said, what a coincidence. I met her the other day and lost her number when I got a new phone." About 2 minutes later, I got a text from my best friend that said, "I gave your number to a girl who wants to make friends around here and is looking for people to join her business. And since I moved this week, I thought of you." I freaked out she was with her and told her to get away and not leave alone with her. I stayed up worried until my best friend got home. She said she was fine, otherwise I would have gone to pick her up. The next day, my friend apologized and told me to block the number. My friend and her group tried to ditch her, but she kept showing up at the bars they were at. She said the girl was relentless and texted her all night, trying to get my friend to hang out at her place. My friend also said that when she asked about the business, the girl wouldn't give her many details, other than that it was a warehouse somewhere, would pay her great, in town, and if she wanted a tour of it, she wouldn't hesitate to take her.